move on to a conversation around the Competition Commission that's prosecuting Vita Gas for limiting access to LPG import facilities. Bakhe Majenge, Competition Commission Chief Legal Counsel, joins us now. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to Power Business. I think, first of all, I would want us to establish really what the transgression is here on the side of Vita Gas.
Yes, essentially what is happening here, Tumisang, is that we received a complaint from Sunrise on the 9th of June 2020, alleging that Vita Gas has essentially twisted it to enter into an exclusive agreement, which essentially restricted the usage of the only LPG import terminal facility in the Western Cape. So essentially what the Commission is seeking to do through this referral is to loosen the stranglehold of Vita Gas over this only LPG import facility, so as to give an opportunity to other importers to use the facility.
So the basis of my initial question in trying to first establish where the transgression is to ultimately get to the contravention of Section 81DI, which then speaks of the Competition Act in terms of how companies should be conducting themselves. So how wide-ranging is this transgression in that it needs an investigation, it would ultimately get to a prosecutorial phase, and what then dictates the fact-finding mission?
How this exclusive agreement between Vita Gas and Sunrise in respect of this facility engages the Competition Act is that essentially the conduct by Vita Gas constitutes an exclusionary abuse of dominance in terms of the Competition Act, because it has the effect of excluding, as I have explained, competitors as well as potential competitors of Vita Gas from gaining access to this LPG import terminal facility.
And it becomes important to identify that there are laws against, the transgression of the competition climate. And based on that, I would want to find out whether within this market, has it at least at this point been proven that there is that exclusion of other providers when it comes to this agreement that Vita Gas has gotten into with Sunrise?
Certainly, without any shadow of a doubt, the Western Cape province is dependent at the moment solely on LPG imports because there are no refineries in the Western Cape producing LPG gas. So Vita Gas is the only import at the moment. And you can just imagine then what the implications are in terms of the ability then of Vita Gas to exert, for instance, pricing power, because it's essentially a monopoly, a spatial monopoly in respect of LPG in the Western Cape. And LPG, particularly within the current environment, where the country is facing constraints in terms of electricity supply. LPG is also a viable alternative, especially for industrial customers.
At the same time, it does have a direct impact. This transgression between Vita Gas and Sunrise on the end user, which is then the consumer. Talk to us about that particular element of impact.
Yes, I think you're quite right. Although the exclusion is taking place at the upstream level, that is the importation level. The conduct does have a domino effect on end consumers, because end consumers access the product from wholesalers who are supplied this gas by Vita Gas, and ultimately then wholesalers supply this to retailers. Definitely the conduct does have a domino impact in terms of depriving end consumers of alternative in terms of gas supply.
Lastly, it may be too early to ask, but what punitive measures could be faced in this regard? And, the reason why I mention this is that the competition authorities have in the past been accused of simply slapping these big companies on the wrist by just, imposing fines that not too much of a deterrent, because their revenue speaks for itself and that they can afford to pay these fines.
Yeah, actually, our data reveals otherwise, Tumisang, in terms of the deterrent impact of these penalties. In fact, these penalties do bite, and most companies battle, in fact, to pay these penalties. In some instances, we have had to issue warrants of execution in order to enforce payment. So there is certainly a deterrent impact. There is also reputational damage arising out of these prosecutions. So certainly in this case, we are looking for a two-pronged intervention. The first intervention is to really end the exclusivity and to open access to the facility to other market players or new entrants. So that is really the first prize. Of course, as you correctly pointed out, then for the historic exclusionary conduct, there has to be some deterrence against that conduct. That is where we are looking for a penalty in terms of addressing the historic conduct. But going forward, what we want to see is the opening up of competition in the Western Cape.
Sounds positive enough because it's a holistic approach that the Competition Commission is taking. Thank you so much for your time. Bakhe Majenge, Competition Commission Chief Legal Counsel, this evening on Power Business, talking to us about the competition authorities prosecuting Vita Gas for limiting access to LPG import facilities.